La da 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 da. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Are you out there?
Hello. Welcome to Jameel's show, and we're going to start out with a prayer, and we're looking for individuals who have something in mind they want to pray about. What is it in your life that you feel spiritually unaligned with? What is it in your life that you feel challenged by? And are you working the process of your challenges? That's something big that I'm looking into with people. Whatever your goal is, I encourage you to work the process, become more familiar with the process, and absorb the process that you're going through. And the information that I put forth is going to be to spiritually enhance every individual's life. We want to spiritually enhance your life and every opportunity available, and bring forth the love and the counseling and the wisdom of not myself, but of the infinite, of source energy, of everything that creation has to offer. We want you to have that. Now, a wise man knows how much he does not know. That's a quote from Socrates, and I'm aware that there's a lot that I don't know. And I'm aware of that. And so if you have knowledge or expertise that you would like to contribute to Jameel's show, I encourage you to get involved. I encourage you to get more inclusive and step forward and enjoy the process of evolution, evolving. A lot of people come into the alternative research community, and this by no means is a format where I'm trying to present myself as a part of the alternative research community, but online there's a lot of different subjects. People call it the truth movement, the alternative research community, and people come in to the format and they always say, we need a revolution. We need a revolution. That's what the communists say. No, you don't need a revolution. What you need is an evolution. Revolution means you revolve and go back to where you started. We don't need to go back to where we started. We need to go forward. So the Jameel show is not. Jameel show is about evolution, the evolutionary scale, and spiritual evolution and social evolution, and making that progress that's needed and moving forth. And so Jameel's show is a spin-off of the Jameel Rawls show. And the Jameel Rawls show is more about just my life and where how I grew up and the sorts of people I know. And, I had, at one time I produced music, and I did a lot of hardcore conspiracy research and whatnot, and I studied the occult for many years and whatnot. But the Jameel show is more about just the spiritual and progressional development of fellow mankind. And so, one of the subjects that you may have come across recently online studying is the idea of mediumship. The idea of mediumship. And I came up with a format about metaphysical mentoring. I did. And a lot of people, I broke down what channeling was, what mediumship is, And a lot of people are unaware of what channeling is. A lot of people say, oh, channeling is demonic, channeling is of the devil. This 1500s mindset is going to ruin people. Human beings still have a 1500, 1400s mindset spiritually and as far as religions go. Things have not changed much since the 14 and 1500s psychologically and attitudinally with a lot of people. And I want to present some new information today that you may not have heard in the past. And it's called What Are You Channeling? So if you're listening to a radio station, you're channeling. You cannot see radio waves. Go outside and go walking around all day looking for radio waves. Go walking around all month. You're never going to find them. You can walk around for 20 years. You're not going to find any radio waves. So you can't see radio waves. You can't see radio waves, okay? But you know they're there. And the reason why you know they're there is because you have a radio. And you can tune in to the different stations. And you can vibrationally pick up the stimulus coming in, the waves coming in, and listen to one of your favorite songs. You know, you can turn on the oldies and listen to the Beach Boys, or you can listen to, the Four Tops or whatever, or you can listen to some you listen like rap music, you listen to, some Eminem or some Tupac Shakur or some Eazy-E or something. If you like classical music, you can listen to Bach, Beethoven, Chopin. You can do basically anything you want to do with a radio if the station performers are going to play it. Okay, so that's a form of channeling. You're channeling in this information, this energy, and when you listen to it, it's changing your attitude, which is further channeling. And you listen to a good song like Marvin Gaye, you might get into a happy mood. You might want to go out and visit somebody you haven't seen in 10 years, 10 weeks, or whatever. You might want to listen to some classical music and sit back and think and reflect. There's studies that have been done that show that plants grow faster and grow better under classical music, right? Under classical music. You might listen to a rap song and be angry and get violent and want to go out and shoot somebody. There's people in the penitentiary for the rest of their lives who are there maybe over some music. They had a couple drinks of alcohol, listened to some rap music, or listened to some hard rock or some heavy metal music, sped their car up and hit somebody and killed them, or got a gun and went out and shot somebody, and they're in jail forever. Channeling that music, channeling that vibration, channeling in that vibration, lowered their energy, lowered their frequency. So, on Jameel's show, we want to get into that. Get into channeling. What is channeling? You can watch a television program. You can watch a television program and you can see violence. There's been, Americans, but if you're born in modern times, by the age you're 20, you're going to see thousands and thousands of murders, stimulated murders through television, TV show, video games, YouTube, if you're into that, watching that sort of stuff. And we're in a generation where, people have been born through the television. We're like 4 or 5 generations into radio, movies, film, television, the sound, the vibration of sound, radio, TV, now internet. We're several generations into that. There's people walking the streets who don't know life without a television. They don't know reality without television. So that's a form of channeling. You're tuning in to the station. You're absorbing energy and absorbing information. You're channeling. You're channeling. So that's the Jameel show. That's the Jameel show. And so we want to provide I want to provide a format for people to learn. What are you channeling? Is what you're watching representative of how you feel? Why are you feeling like this? You may be better off just turning the TV off for a while. Getting some exercise, getting out, getting some books and stuff, and reading and studying. Change your mindset, change your vibration, change your frequency. What are you channeling? Okay? And the people that you're channeling, what are they channeling? Because if you're channeling in people that you're watching on television and the people you're hanging around, you're going to see people, you're in a classroom learning information, you're channeling that information. Somebody is presenting a presentation to you in a classroom and explaining something to you, you're channeling this vibration through you. And it's altering your DNA. It's altering your consciousness. This is channeling. So, what are you channeling? And why? And how long will you continue to channel it? That's that's Jameel show. And so this is just a little preview we're going to get into the hybrid children phenomena now. And we do not have any guest on the show right now today. What I'm going to be discussing is the hybrid children phenomena. And so you can have that. We will have that time together for me to describe the hybrid children phenomena. And the fact that we do not have any guest on the show today is reflective that's reflective of the unwillingness of people to drop what they're doing and get involved with the spirit. I encourage people right now, if you cannot contribute monetarily, that's fine. Money is not going to stop God's people. Money is not going to stop God's people from getting in touch with each other. So if you don't have any donation funds, that's fine. You can send in do you have a can of soup? Do you have a bologna sandwich? Do you have a place, could you have a room that I could stay at for a couple weeks? That's the type of stuff, even if I don't need it, just the fact that somebody out there would offer it. That's in God's plan. That's all part of the plan of the Spirit to bring people together and get people active with each other. And we're looking for this summer. We're looking for an outing group. We have the Jameel show, and we're looking to bring forth an outing group for this summer. And the money is essential. The money is not for me. It's not for me. We're doing this for this. We're doing this for the spiritual development of people. Just like the movie Blues Brothers, how they said they were on a mission from God. That's the mission that we're on. We're on a mission from God, just like Blues Brothers. Okay, and we're not about to let the devil stop that plan. And when I say devil, I'm not formally religious. I'm not Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, but I'm talking about the energy. You know what I'm talking about. People out there always go, he's talking about the devil, and I'm not religious. This has nothing to do with religion. That's representative of an energy, a lower vibration opposition to the spiritual work we're doing. You know what I'm talking about. Stop looking for excuses to get out of real work. So on Jameel's show, we're going to bring forth some new stuff for people, and this is going to be a happy time in people's lives. And this summer, we're going to get together and go on some interesting outings, bring people forth. I got a friend of mine who unfortunately is doing time in jail on some petty case. He probably didn't even do it. But he did my soundtrack for the Jameel Rawls show, and he was a wonderful friend of mine. And I'm looking, to get him, maybe when he gets out, I want to have a job lined up for him, something, a formal job lined up for him. He's going to be hopefully he can work for the Jameel Rawls Show. But, we're looking to help people get more inclusive and learn about the universe, learn about each other, and we're looking for massive prayer. Financial contributions are one way of showing your support. I need all my listeners to pray for Jameel's show. If you're listening to this show, I'm asking you to take a couple minutes. You can do it right now, or you can do it at some point today or tonight or tomorrow, and just pray for Jameel's show. Pray for the success of Jameel's show. Pray for the spiritual development we're all working towards, and pray to put our petty differences aside. The whole thing about not liking each other because of, hey, the way you talk is different than how I talk, or, your religion, or where you live in the world, or your racial background, or you don't got as much money as me, or you got more money than, we're going to put all that aside on Jameel's show, and we're going to throw that away. And we're looking for people to put their petty differences aside and come forth and pray for each other. I pray for all my listeners and everybody anyway, but I'm praying that my listeners can wake up and get into the spirit of this movement on Jameel's show, and we're going to move forth to a positive, realistic destiny. And we're looking forward to bringing people back, not bring them back, but move, keep that progression going. And this summer we're going on some outings. We're going to be going on some interesting outings. We'll need a cameraman or a camera woman. We'll need people who can paint, artistic people who are into psychic development. I have some ESP cards. We're going to be using through Theta Magic. Theta Magic is a formula I self-created. You can, the way I use Theta Magic is a formula I created with the hand mudras and the bending of brain waves and whatnot. And we're going to, after people drop their petty differences, we're going to be teaching people to expand their psychic ability and to move forward. And it's going to be a really cool time. And Jameel's show is, sponsored by the Infinite, the power of creation. And I'm looking forward to all that. So again, I'm praying for everybody's success and wishing the best. And we're sending all of our listeners, all of my listeners. When I say our, I'm talking about the spirit of Jameel's show, the group, the different individuals listening. There's not anybody, when I say our, there's not anybody behind me that you don't know about. I'm talking about the spirituality of all the different listeners of Jameel's show. And we're going to be bringing that forward in a positive light, and including people and getting people to be inclusive, and asking that the guardian angels look over Jameel's show. Everybody's guardian angels out there look over Jameel's show and look over everybody listening to Jameel's show, of course. And we're gonna move forward and go forward, and hopefully people will get the most out of this. Okay, thank you. And now let's get into the hybrid children. Okay. Welcome back, and this is Jameel Show. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to get into a popular subject known as hybrid children. And for those of you who are not aware, there is Jameel Show, then there is the Jameel Rawls Show. And you may be asking, what's the point of having two shows? What's the difference? The Jameel Rawls Show is a show so people can get more familiar with me, how I grew up, some of my endeavors I've been in. I was a music producer for a period. I did a lot of radio work regarding alternative research. I've come across a lot of interesting subjects. I presented them. And for people who aren't familiar with me or who may be calling into question my integrity and my character and whatnot, I put aside just the Jameel Rawls Show for people who can just get familiar with me, who can relax, get to know me, email me, maybe even come on the show. I interview people from all different backgrounds, entertainers, people who question things in society, which they should be. If you're not questioning things, there's something wrong. And so that's what the Jameel Rawls Show is all about. Jameel Show is a little bit similar. I get into a little bit more of the paranormal, the esoteric, the occult. I get into subjects that most people are not familiar with. So a lot of the people that I grew up with, that I know, they're going to be able to relate to me a little bit, maybe a little bit easier through the Jameel Rawls Show. Then I'm going to have I have a general audience who isn't really too concerned with where I went, who my friends were, or where I went to school, or what my rap producer career. They're not going to be too interested. They're going to be interested in information that's going to be able to propel them to a better holistic life, spiritually, intellectually. It's going to be able to help their children, be able to help their family, and so that's what Jameel Show is more about. Just the center of where I'm at now and the research I produce. So now this is about hybrid children, and there's two different types of groups of hybrid children. There's hybrid children who are in fact human. They're human, both parents are human. They're born, but they're at a different state in evolution than others in the human species. When you look at humans, there's different genres of humans. Like, you have different genres of music. You have classical, pop, rock, jazz, blues, folk music, hip hop, heavy metal. We can go on and on. There's different genres of humans. There's humans who are just attitudinally different. Their DNA lines are vary, but they're different enough for the species to be a little bit different. You see somebody coming from a Germanic culture and somebody coming from an Aboriginal background in Australia. They're both human, but they're both different shades of human. They're different species of human, but they're still both human. So that's what we're doing. We're going to break this down really simple for people. So hybrid children, both parents are human. The child is born, but the child has inherently a different belief system than most humans historically have had. A lot of people are raised in schools where mental intelligence is prized over everything. I remember when I was in the second grade, I'd be in the classroom and the teachers were very loving and compassionate at least some of them were, and they're loving and compassionate. As children, you know how to identify with that. If a teacher is hard and stern and cold, that's not something a child is going to want to be involved with. Usually, a child's going to want to be involved with something that's of a loving essence, something that's happy. Children like happiness. So as a child, I remember I could look at a teacher, and some teachers were reflective and represented happiness. Some teachers didn't. And so, but for the teachers who reflected joy and kindness, they were more open to sharing with emotional intelligence. They were more open to emotional intelligence, and the way we learned was different. I mean, the way, students learn differently. Some students are left brain thinkers, very structured, analytical. Some students are right brain thinkers, abstract, creative, artistic. That's me. I'm more, I can use both spheres, but I'm more of a right brain. I enjoy creative, surreal art. I love art. I love mystery, things like that. So, and I even created my own format using that in various systems known as abstract intellectualism. But so growing up, I remember my teachers would be some of them that were more loving and kind and whatnot. They would share things more openly with emotional intelligence, and you could feel what they were teaching you. And going back again, some people were right brain learners. Kinesthetic learners mean they learn better by touching objects. If we're learning geometry, touching cubes and cubes or squares or, these different sorts of hexagrams and whatnot, these different sorts of shapes, some of us learn better from extracting information from dealing with these objects and physical reality. Some of us were, auditory learners or visual learners. Myself, I think I really enjoy the visual thing, but listening helps me a lot. Listening gives me a lot of insight. Seeing gives me a lot of insight as well. I can gather a lot of information from just seeing a picture. Now, me, myself, I'm well versed in parapsychology, which is a step above psychology, which parapsychology uses intuitive ability and a lot of intuitive ability, and deals with the paranormal, of course, and millions of people, there's governments all over the world who've used the paranormal. I think there's something like 80 million different government officials from each country all around the world. There's like 80 million different government officials, and a lot of these, through the years, there's been a lot of governments who are a lot of corporations who have looked in to the practical use of the paranormal intuitive ability. That's something that I'm well versed in. That's something I use. Intuitive ability, the paranormal, okay? Parapsychology, especially dealing with, where I'm at, my research, pineal gland, the chakra system, aura frequency, what have you not. So again, looking at a photograph for me, I can use it for retrocognition, which means I can look at the photograph and know what happened in the past. Or I can look at the photograph, I can hear a story and think of what's going to be the outcome in the future, which is precognition. Retrocognition the past, precognition the future. Okay, now this is parapsychology, right? Extrasensory perception, ESP, all that good stuff. But touching objects, listening, seeing, visual learning, audio learning, kinesthetic learning, those are the three learning apparatus or tools we would use growing up in school. Then you had the left brain, right brain. So going back to the teachers, a lot of the teachers would, as a child, would know how to give, emotional intelligence to us or spiritual intelligence. Now, leaving the first grade and second grade and getting into third grade, all that ends. When you get about into the third grade, unfortunately, mental intelligence, it becomes about like 99.9%. The only time you ever see a teacher really quietly get together with a student and take their time with the student and quiet the student down and share is when the student's having a breakdown, when there's a fight in the classroom or somebody just has some sort of episode or something. I remember I had a third grade teacher who was so interesting. Outside the classroom, she was one person. Inside the classroom, she was another person. And in the classroom, she was real strict. But outside of the classroom, she was very social and happy. And I remember seeing her speak. A relative speak to the teacher, and she was so outgoing and happy and all this stuff outside the classroom and social. And I'm like, why can't she be like that in the classroom? And so. But I remember some students would just, have some sort of breakdown. The teacher would have to counsel them and go over it with them and talk to them. But mental intelligence was the primary intelligence in the school system, in the classroom. That's all people used. And a lot of my knowledge that I learned came from speaking to my grandfather. And my grandfather was a worldly man. My grandfather, was a captain in a major airline. He flew all over the world. He flew in the service for many years before that, and so he was an extremely knowledgeable man, and he was very practical but very open. And he would speak to me on a lot of different platforms. I would learn a lot of things from him going home. So I remember that in the classroom. But now, going further into this hybrid thing, hybrid children are at a more elevated state. They absorb information differently. Hybrid children are gonna be more in depth into looking at a scenario and using holistic intelligence. Holistically absorbing the information that's in their area of control, their sphere of influence around them. They're going to, through their DNA, hybrid children through their DNA, basically it's like interdimensional. They just absorb information around them, far more than the average individual. Now, before the age of 7, if a child is allowed to continue in this way, they will probably become some of the best psychics you've ever seen. The school system, unfortunately, systematically breaks children down into not being able to use these abilities. That's changing in today's world. Unfortunately, through modern medicine, a lot of these children who are using holistic intelligence and quantum intelligence, emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, in accordance with mental intelligence, a lot of these children are being given drugs. The schools, the teachers are not being educated on these different forms of intelligence. They're not being educated on the 5 points of intelligence and the speeds of intelligence. A child may be able to have a much more faster speed of intelligence emotionally than mentally. Spiritually, they may spiritually have a faster speed, quantumly, holistically, than mental intelligence. And mental intelligence is just one form of intelligence. So unfortunately, a lot of teachers are berating the children and trying to beat the children into submission to only use one form of intelligence. And they're often giving the children drugs if they don't do it. And, Jameel's show is about progress and growth. If you're a parent and you have a child, look into hybrid children. It doesn't mean that your child's an extraterrestrial from a different dimension. It just means that your child may be at a faster evolutionary state in different areas, and their primary use of intelligence is far different. That's just the way it is. So then you have hybrid children who are actually real hybrids. This gets into the paranormal. This deals with a whole nother subject that you would be better off just contacting me and talking to me one-on-one privately about it. But the children that are born may have been be connected to an ET group that wants to incarnate with humans. They want to work with humans for various reasons. Some of them may be trying to help humans. A friendly ET group that is connected to humans genetically. This goes back to the creation of humans, and they may be wanting to help humans forward in their progress. So the ETs are working with families to bring forth children who are going to move the human race forward spiritually. That's something that's going on the earth. And unfortunately, a lot of these children they're trying to give them drugs. And that's something that, That's something to be thought of. You see this on television, shows like the X-Files, all kinds of movies. Millions of dollars are spent putting this same story into various movies, various books, various radio shows, television shows. I remember there was a show called Are You Afraid of the Dark? And Are You Afraid of the Dark was one of the best shows I've ever seen growing up. We used to love that show. Matter of fact, I was talking about the guy who did the soundtrack to the Jameel Rawls show, a friend of mine, Razor. He used to stay night at my house, and we would watch Are You Afraid of the Dark, Beavis and Butthead and all this stuff. But on Are You Afraid of the Dark, there was an episode. Was it called The 13th Floor? It was an episode on Are You Afraid of the Dark, and I remember that show with Dr. Vink and that one guy who ran the Mystic Shop on Are You Afraid of the... Nickelodeon used to put out some really interesting stuff back then. But Are You Afraid of the Dark was a show where I think it was something about this little girl living in an apartment complex, and there was this big tall white Nordic guy. And in today's world, you would say, man, that guy is like a Pleiadian or something, And he was in the building with her. Then there was gray aliens, and they wanted her to go back to the extraterrestrials wanted her to leave and go into outer space to some other planet. And she was freaked out by it, and she didn't want to go. And they were like, "We're your family. We're your family. We're your family." And so that's a hybrid children scenario. She was born into a human family, and the extraterrestrials were watching over her and letting her gather these experiences on Earth. And instead of staying on Earth, they wanted to bring her back to wherever she was from or them. And they put that in the TV show. They weren't trying to hurt her. They were her family. They had some sort of agreement. They had some sort of soul agreement with her human parents. And they used her mother to have a hybrid children. And she was incarnated on Earth. And so we watched, TV shows depicted stuff like this all the time. Millions of dollars have been spent on hundreds of millions of dollars spent on this kind of stuff. So that's the simple breakdown of a hybrid children. They have ET origins, but they appear to be born from a mother and father. A case could be a mother through the hyperspace or the astral realm, are just actually abducted, and and ET genes, and so the mother has an ET baby, and so that's a form, that's the hybrid children. So you have different sorts of hybrid children who are just really two human parents, and they're used to more inclusive intelligence forms. Then you have the actual hybrids, real hybrid children. So on Jameel's show, what we're looking to do is bring forth that knowledge and let people allowed to have that knowledge. And a lot of women. Now I've been to, as a veteran esoteric scholar, I've been to going out and being around different sort of conventions. And I remember there would be channeling sessions and all sorts of stuff about extraterrestrials and all sorts of cool stuff. People playing, astrology and tarot cards and everything. People trying to figure out what's going on. When a lot of people get together who are psychic, it gets pretty funky. I remember being in some conventions, I got sick. I felt dizzy, like I was going to pass out just being in the room, because there were so many people in the room who were psychically open. The energy was big. The energy was so big in the room, it made me dizzy. Humans are electromagnetic. If you put 20 people in the room who are psychic or open to the paranormal and intuitive, that's going to be a major energy. That's going to be a group energy. I remember being at some conventions, and I was just like, whoa, man, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to being around this many people who can think. You know what I mean? And but on Jameel's show, I want to stress to people, I've been around individuals, around a lot of different women, who say who know they have hybrid children. They want to know, who are their hybrid children. Where are their hybrid children at? And it gets serious. It gets serious. It gets very serious. There are women out there who want to know where their hybrid children are at. Like you know how somebody gets their you know how some weird deranged fruitcake kidnaps a child. Some weird mentally deranged fruitcake kidnaps somebody's children. That's how they look at it. They look at it like they want to know where their child is. So you see all sorts of interesting stuff like that. There's all sorts of interesting people that come on Jameel's show. And so that's one thing. They're serious. They want to know where their child is. And they go to psychics and they go to mediums to find out what ET group might have did it. And not took their child, but what ET group is working with them with their child. Not that anybody's stolen it. They just want to know. They want to meet their hybrid children. They want to be around their hybrid children. And now to really and this is really going to be a trip. This is really going to be a trip. There are children who are coming forth who are like 4 years old, 5 years old, who are saying that they know their hybrid children, and they have met and spoke to their extraterrestrial family. There are 4 and 5 year old children who have come forth and told people that they have grandparents who are extraterrestrials who come to Earth and show themselves. Children. And so that's one of the amazing things I've seen over the years in my occult research is there's children stepping forth. Not 30-something-year-old men like me, but children are stepping forth and telling people there's extraterrestrials. The extraterrestrials are real and they're related to them. Now, that is one of the most fascinating things that I have ever seen. And this gets into DNA and all sorts of interesting questions. And so that's sort of gets off into quantum intelligence. These children are working with quantum intelligence. And, I counsel people and teach people and help people to take the steps forward they need to take. So, if somebody wants to speak privately on that, feel free to email me. You may want to come on Jameel's show, or you may not want to, but feel free to email me. And so we're going to get into, now what am I looking to break down? We covered the hybrid children. Did I cover it enough, though? That's the question. There's an interesting movie out there. Called Brother from Another Planet. Brother from Another Planet was one of my favorite movies. Brother from Another Planet was a movie made back in like 84, somewhere around there, I believe. And yeah, about 84 somewhere. And it played, remember the black guy from Terminator 2? I forget the actor, I forget his name, I forget who he is. But he played the movie called Terminator 2. And in his film, in Terminator 2, he played the part of the guy who, remember Sarah Connor broke into his house in the middle of the night, and this guy knew everything about Skynet. They had found the Terminator's hand, and they were reduplicating the Terminator, and Sarah Connor broke in his room, broke into his house, and said he was responsible for millions of people's deaths and all this stuff. That's the guy I'm talking about. So he was in a movie called Brother from Another Planet. And in the movie, he looks like just some black guy on the street, just another guy you come across on the street. No, nothing different. But he comes to Earth and he has feet with that look like reptile feet or reptile claws on his feet and all that stuff. And he comes down to Earth, but he's black. And he comes down to Earth. You're gonna get into like black extraterrestrials, right? So he comes down to Earth, and he's walking around, and he's in New York City, and he shows up at the old Ellis Island, and he can hear everything that was ever said in the room. He hears all these voices that people were saying, thousands, decades ago, Ellis Island, but decades ago, he shows up in the 80s, and people have been going through Ellis Island, the Italian immigrants, and the German immigrants, and the Irish immigrants, and the black Indonesian, Indochina cultures and stuff. And so he's sitting there, and he's auditorily absorbing through retrocognition. He's using retrocognition to absorb the energy of what was happening in that room in a different reality of what is known as the past. He's absorbing. He's using quantum intelligence to absorb the room, taking in within what's in the room and learning from the room. He's mastering the room that he's in. He's mastering the history. He's mastering the room itself is a living consciousness. Just like the earth is a living consciousness, just like a flower is a living consciousness, just like a person's a living consciousness, that room has a living consciousness. He's absorbing the consciousness of the room. In hearing, through retrocognition, sensing what was vocally expressed in that room. He's mastering the room. So then he ends up, and you hear stories like this about people who are from different realities or extraterrestrials who can touch a wall. They can go into an all dark room and touch a wall and know what the color is. There's people who claim to have worked with ETs who say that. They can go into a room, a dark room, touch the wall, and know what color the room is. So this is a fascinating movie, Brother from Another Planet. So he's on Earth, and he's walking around, and he can't speak the language. He has to learn the language. He can't speak the language, and he starts fixing arcade games. He starts fixing arcade games, and he can fix an arcade game like in 2 seconds. He just looks at it, he can just fix it. He knows what's wrong with it. He just fixes it. And so he fixes all the games, and he gets a job. This guy ends up at a bar, and the men in black come in. 2 tall, white-looking guys in black suits and stuff come in. And the interesting thing about the men in black is the kind of suit that the men in black wear that you see in the films. If you really think about it, somebody could wear that suit in any era in from like 1910 to even from 1910 to even now. I guess now they would maybe but from 1910 to definitely the 1990s, somebody could have wore that same suit in any decade. They could have wore it in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. The men in black could have wore their black suits in any era, and nobody would even know the difference. They could just jump into the reality with their black suit on, and whoever sees them in any decade isn't going to think much of it. That's one of the interesting things about the men in black, is their dress code is adaptable to almost any era in modern times. That's one of the greatest things about the men in black. But the men in black come into the bar, and the men in black are in the bar, and the men in black are like, we're going to take, kind of like we're going to take you back. We're going to take you back to wherever you belong. And so the men in black come into the bar, and these guys have some sort of, they ask the black guy, like they almost look like they're from like they're coming in from some sort of immigrant service. Like you're an immigrant, you have to go back. And they asked the black guy, they asked one of the guys at the counter, and he's talking about they were saying like, you looking for a green card or something, man? He's like my people built this country. I don't need a green card. He's like, I don't need a green card. And so he's like swearing, but they don't know the guy's an extraterrestrial. It's not a thing about are you from, Cuba or anything like that. It's like he's an extraterrestrial. So the men in black have some sort of conflict with the guy, and then they both put their fingers together as extraterrestrials, and then they disappear. They both fly off. They put their the men in black do some sort of hyperspace thing, and then they both disappear. They both put their fingers together, and they both just disappear into a different dimension, so to speak. They both put their one hand fingers on their solar plexus, and then they put their the other two fingers together. The two, the one with the right hand, one with the right arm, one with the left arm. When they're standing next to each other, they touch those, and then both of them who have the farthest arm from those arms, which would be one right, one left on the outside, they put it on their solar plexus, and they just disappear into hyperspace. And it's one of the most interesting films I've ever seen. It's one of the most interesting films I've ever seen. That's a really good analogy of the hybrid children phenomena, of how people are born. They might not really be able to interpret all how this reality works. I'm born into this reality, and I have different intelligences in this reality. I learn differently. I extract information from looking at people. I gain information. I don't have to sit down and use only mental intelligence and some small area of left brain thinking to go through some sort of classroom procedure step by step by step. I can just sit back and look and watch and learn. Being in the experience, I gather a lot of information. Maybe even more. A lot of these hybrid children absorb far more information on a scenario in that manner. Just being around it, looking at it, opening their DNA to different dimensions. Have you whatnot. And again, you're listening to the Jameel Show. And so I'm a veteran esoteric scholar, and my job right now is to break down for you, how this thing works, the hybrid children scenario, the DNA, the different dimensions, and going into the film industry. There's multiple different movies that you can watch and learn from. It's a Brother from Another Planet, like the television show. What was Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Simpsons, like, you see TV shows like The Simpsons reflected a lot of different types of stuff like that. If you look into my metaphysical mentoring that I do, you can see how I break down the Nightmare on Elm Street movies and many other movies. I'm trying to come up with something really good for people, a film that depicts the whole hybrid children scenario that's going on. I guess, the horror film had like the body, the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That was like a horror film perspective. I know a lot of people who are listening to me are more on the optimistic, positive, holistic section. That you're not going to want to watch a horror movie to learn from it. You know what I mean? But that's just a point I'm making. Okay. Man, what other films out there? Hybrid show. There's a lot of them. I just can't think. It comes to my mind. There's a lot of stories out there of hybrid children who, are born and they come down and whatnot. And you got to remember one thing. Stories are told in different sorts of ways. I'm sure there's a lot of stories out there who explain the same thing, just in a different way. A lot of people might misinterpret also. Now, when you get into like the reptilian beings and whatnot, a lot of people might misinterpret. A lot of people say the reptilians are evil creatures. A lot of these creatures might not really be evil. That's the point I want to bring up too, is we got to get out of this 1500s mentality where everything that's different is bad. You got to think the universe is a big place, and Earth itself is a big place. There's people we don't know what's going on in the ocean. There's things going on in the bottom of the ocean we don't know about. In an American context, how many people know how many different languages around the world there is? How many different languages there are? How many different countries are there? How many different national flags? How many different religions? And whatnot. People out there, there's a lot of people out there walking around, they don't have a good interpretation of even their own planet. They don't really have a planetary history to begin with. So I encourage people to be more open. When you hear of, that's going to be something I want people to look into and be more open to look into it. If you hear of somebody, oftentimes you see somebody with like reptilian eyes or stuff, and that might not actually be, that doesn't mean that's a demonic being or a demonic creature. It could have evil intentions. There could be beings out there walking around right next to us, and they look one way, and they might be a terrestrial species, a non-human terrestrial species making themselves look human. They could be, they may have good intentions. They may have not have good. It's open for debate. It's open for debate. But I encourage people to research in and study and learn and gather what information they can get out of this whole thing. Gather. So you see shows like the X-Files, and right now as I'm speaking, I'm going through some paperwork, trying to find a paper of mine. As I'm speaking. Well, anyway, so we get into something. Chinese mythology. Chinese mythology is one of the most open mythologies. When you look at the emperors in China, ancient China, and China is the longest going civilization, the longest going nation that's ever been on the planet. China's been around for 3,000 years. China now, as China has been around for 3,000 years. The United States of America has only been around since 1776. Before that, you had European settlers who, through communal living, like the Mennonites and whatnot, who settled in the Americas, going back to like the 1600s, and have you. They were here as European settlers, and you had the Great American Indian culture here, who had been here for thousands of years, thousands of years, or million, God knows who all. But then you had the Chinese, who've been around for 3,000 years. Their nation has been around for 3,000. As a nation, they've been around for not as a people, not as a language, not as a religion, not as a culture. Their nation has been here for 3,000 years. So, in Chinese mythology, oftentimes you hear the emperor speaking about turning, they talk about how the emperor of China could turn into a dragon. The emperor of China could turn into a dragon instantaneously, just like the Maya and the Inca depicted dragons. The emperor of China could turn into a dragon instantaneously. And the emperor of China, the emperor of China was similar to the Naga stories of the Naga beings in Laos, through Laotian history, and Cambodian history. Laotian mythology is very interesting. The country of Laos, the Laotian people have a very interesting mythology, but Cambodian mythology is very interesting. Thai mythology too. In Thailand, the zodiac the Thai zodiac doesn't use a dragon; they use a Naga. And to be clear, every ancient civilization, every civilization that has ever existed has always had a zodiac. There is not one civilization on this planet that has never had a zodiac. All the civilizations have had a zodiac. In any area of civilization, there has been a zodiac. So the Thai people, through their zodiac, they don't use the dragon, they use the Naga, the serpent being. And they have an extensive history of interacting with the Naga princess, the Naga king's daughter, how you can marry a Naga and she would come up out of the swamps, out of the earth. And it reminds me a lot of Rihanna's work. Rihanna, who's a well-known singer, of course, has done some amazing. Rihanna's done some amazing work, and Rihanna comes out of the water partially clothed with lizard scales, and Rihanna in Rihanna's magazines, she depicts herself with lizard scales and lizard eyes and all this stuff. And so, if you look back to the ancient Laotians and Cambodians and the Thai, you can see this what they're talking about thousands of years ago. Modern humans are doing on television. Singers dressing up like snake women and lizard women coming out of the water. That's no different than what they were talking about 3,000 years ago in ancient China. So the Naga are ancient species of lizard folk, and they're terrestrial. Now, I want to break this down for people. Just because you see an intelligent species that is not human doesn't mean that they're not from Earth. This is a terrestrial. The Naga are a terrestrial species. They're not an extraterrestrial species. The Naga are from Earth. Okay? Now, there's a difference between an alien and an extraterrestrial. You may say that the Naga look alien to me, and they're an alien species, but they're not extraterrestrial. You can have alien species from Earth. Dolphins are alien to humans, but dolphins are not extraterrestrials. And dolphins are very intelligent, by the way. But dolphins are not extraterrestrials. Dolphins are terrestrial, but they may be alien. There's creatures at the bottom of the ocean who are alien, but you can see a creature like a Bigfoot and say, man, that's not a human being. Man, that's a different, but they're from Earth. They're from Earth, but they're not from outer space. There's creatures on the Earth who are very different and a lot of times far more intelligent than humans, but they're not extraterrestrial. So that has to be cleared. And so hybrid children could be some sort of infusion of beings who are already here, who are not from the cosmos, or they could be beings coming from other places coming here. So there's a difference between extraterrestrial and alien, okay? And that's something that the Jameel show wants to get across. Now going back to what I was saying about the Naga. So you have Naga beings, like the Naga princess. You have beings like that are very deeply connected with people who are looking to help humans. They don't have anything against humans. They're looking to help humans. Then there might be a large array of creatures who view humans as being ignorant, irresponsible, hostile, shameful, and don't really want to, like, who wants to be involved? You got to think about it realistically. If you were an extraterrestrial, would you want to be on the streets walking around so everybody can see it? Do you see what kind of, go back and look at Rodney King. Look what the police did to Rodney King. Would you want to be an ET walking around after you saw something like that? If you were an extraterrestrial walking around the street, somebody might call the police on you, and they might show up and beat you in the head or something. ETs are smart. You see all these guns and drugs and all that. You're not going to want to be walking the streets, okay? So use common intelligence. People say, if they're real, why aren't they land? Would you want to land and walk around with these kind of people making decisions? I don't think so. So that's number one on Jameel's show. And so okay, now hybrid children. Now on Jameel's show, we want to get into some other areas. One of the things I'm grateful for is the black community is starting to become more aware of extraterrestrials and interdimensionals and whatnot. 10 years ago, you didn't have really any too many people from the black community coming forth. 20 years ago, you definitely didn't. You definitely didn't. Now there's some other interesting people out there who are doing work. There's some very insightful people. Brother Panic was actually the first black man I've ever seen who went in such depth that he did regarding the occult. And Brother Panic had a pentagram in the background and all this stuff, and Brother Panic was breaking down all this occult terminology to the black community, and I had never really seen, a black man come out into the public and explain, his Kemetic history and the melanin in the skin and white people and black people and where white people come from, where black people come from. I may not agree on everything he says, but again, I haven't looked into all his work, but I was pretty fascinated by his work. The idea of why are there black people and why are there white people? Did white people come from black people? Are white people a further genetic alteration from the prototype of black people? That's something we're looking at in alternative research community, the real research community, I should say. But okay, now hybrid children are people are online. A lot of the hybrid children fascination currently has to do with crystals, and people are using crystals to communicate and sell the hybrid children thing. Every time I see a hybrid children video, I'm seeing crystals, and crystals hold information. Crystals seal information. Crystals are used like through the Akashic records. The Akashic records. Crystals have been on the planet for millions of years, so all the knowledge and information of the planet is said to have been metaphysically sealed within some of these crystals. And so, hybrid children, you see depictions, people take pictures of these children, and they show different forms of crystals and whatnot, and the whole phenomenon gets back into reincarnation. Are the hybrid children, where do they come from as they're born, not just through flesh, but the incarnation of hybrid children? These are spirits that are on the earth. These are people who lived a lifetime. Some of them passed away and come back, or they're spirits from an extraterrestrial point of view. They're soul being incarnations. They're incarnating from a different planet. Are these species who are incarnating from a different planet? And they come in and they can't interpret things. Some of them, it explains, you got to look at some of these people who come in that are blind and deaf. Are these people incarnating from a different dimension or a different world where things like sight and hearing are not normally used? And so they're coming in here to learn in a different way. You got to think, as I historically interpret things, what about all the children who were born, who were put in the circuses, who looked like fish people and monkey people? You remember hearing those stories? They would have hospitals where if a child was born, they would call it birth defects. They would basically call them mutants or freaks, or almost like the X-Men or something. And they would put them in carnivals and zoos and take them away and put them in secret hospitals. I saw something online of a man in China growing trees out of himself. He was growing trees out of himself, growing trees literally. And it makes me think, during the 1900s, in the industrial age, why were children being born looking like frogs and snakes and dogs? Children being born who look like dogs. dog people and cat people. We're cats and we're, and they take these children, hide them away in some sort of psychiatric, what's in their DNA that's making them do that? What's in their DNA that's making them look like dogs and cats and trees and all this stuff? That's something. That's something. Jameel. That's something. The Jameel show. Might have to. Can we get a dog person on here? Somebody who's growing hair or something. Can we get them to break down their interpretation? Can we get some dog? That's something we're looking in. But going back to what I was saying. About the what was I talking about? About the hybrid children who are coming in, born from different soul groups or whatnot, who are born on Earth. These beings may be coming in from different planets, different solar systems, different areas of the galaxy. And they want an experience on Earth. They want to experience Earth. They want to have this experience, right? That's something that's open for debate. And so that's something, so I'd like to meet more people who claiming, they're pregnant for hybrid children, or they had hybrid children, or you may be a hybrid child yourself. We're gonna wind it on down and see if we can get some of these people that come on Jameel's show, bring you on as a guest, whatnot. But we're gonna wind it down and we're gonna wind it down a little bit. And we're going to close off, and I want to say a prayer for people. And just that the spirit of the consciousness of the infinite, of the power of creation, source energy, watch over all my listeners and protect my listeners and keep my listeners spiritually and intellectually aware and emotionally progressive, holistically and quantumly. And we're gonna close off with that prayer. Bring everybody, no matter what your religion is or what your language is. If somebody's listening who's bilingual, you can take this back and translate it into your own tongue for your friends and family. And we're gonna wish everybody a progressive new year. This is January 1st, 2019, by the way. Congratulations if you didn't think you'd make it this far. And we're going to wish everybody the best for the year. And we ask, if you have any contributions, if you can donate, if you have pop cans in your garage, or you have some cans of soup, a bologna sandwich or something, you have a quarter, a screaming nickel, a sobbing dime, a crying penny, whatever you got, you can bring forth and donate to Jameel's show. If you want to use your credit card and order me, and I go to house parties sometimes, and I go to parties, not alcoholic parties, but I go to house parties where we teach and read. If you want to come to a study party, I do study parties where we all get together and study. If you want to use your credit card, order some pizza for the study party or something like that, order some books or some DVDs or whatever, all that's in place. You can reach out to Jameel's show anytime you want to do. If you have any ideas for the show, if you have suggestions of different topics you want to cover, different scenarios you want to cover, whatever you want to get into, I'm more than willing. This is a very open-minded show. Jameel's show. Jameel, I grew up, studying and reading and learning all sorts of interesting stuff, and that's what the show is all about. And if you want to go check out the work, if you want to go check out the Jameel Rawls show, which is the side show, as I talked about in the beginning, that'd be a perfect opportunity for you to do that. But thank you for listening to Jameel's show. Okay.